Mr. Holiday here. So if you do not have your tools, you can work with a regular pencil and you're just going to press hard with your pencil to get your drawing started. Uh, so just get out the regular copy paper. You can work on copy paper as well for those that do have their portfolios. That will be fine. You can also work on the 80-pound Surflight paper that I put in your portfolio. So with your pencil, you're going to draw a circle the size of an orange. Now, for the sake of you seeing my demonstration, I'm going to use vine charcoal. Please use a pencil, but I'm going to use vine charcoal. So you want to start off the eye study with a circle. So make a circle about the size of a orange. So this is a ball that we're drawing. All right. So everyone should be working along with me. No one should just be sitting back spectating. All right. Now, what I want to do is draw a curve. Now, this curve represents the top of the eyelid. So it moves across the drawing like this. And I'm going to extend it just a little bit beyond the circle. So this area right here that I just went beyond represents the tear gland. And I'm going to curve it around, and it's like a little navel shape. It's a little organ, but it's very important in the drawing of a realistic eye. Now, when I draw this curve, notice that my hand is curving. I'm not drawing it straight, I'm drawing it curved because I'm representing the whole ball idea. Your skin wraps around the ball of your eye. Now, when I finish off, the bottom of the eye is not as curved as the top. So I'm just going to start this off, and there's a little bit of a contour bump right here, and then it works its way to the edge of the corner of the eye. And it's not as curved, but yet it is slightly curved, but not as curved. And this is all done lightly with your pencil. Okay? Now, this is very important. We're going to make this person look straight at us. So we have the tear gland, we have the curve of the eye, the bottom curve of the eye, and now we're going to draw the iris. Now, when you draw the iris, I want you to think about this person looking relaxed. We're not going to put the iris in the middle like that. We're going to draw the iris in such a way that the top of the eyelid covers up, I would say maybe a fraction, like about a fifth of the iris. The iris is the color part of the eye. So drawing a curve like this, I'm drawing it so that it fits comfortably within the white of the eye. Now, if I was to finish off the top of that iris, and I'm just doing this for an example here, and you could do it on your paper too, you would see that the top of that iris is covered up by the eyelid. So a fraction of the eyelid covers the top iris. So I'll just keep it. I'll keep that in. I'm not going to erase it yet because I think this is important that you understand the placement. And so right in the center of the iris, you have the pupil. You have the pupil. And we're going to make that pupil slightly dilated. That means it's open. When the pupil is open, it brings in more light. And what really controls the opening of the pupil are the muscles that are in the iris. Now, some people know that. All right. And so I want you to get in here now and erase this part because you don't need this anymore. I was just showing you how that lines up. Does that make sense? I don't want to confuse anybody. Now, work on your shape. If it doesn't look like a good circle, then fix it. If it if it looks blobby, then take some time and work on the shapes because you want good circles and good curves. Good circles and good curves. Okay? Now, once you got that set up, then I want you to take your pencil and with a curved line, draw the top fold of the eyelid. This is the top fold of the eyelid. It curves around and then it tapers down towards the tear gland. So it would taper right in here. So it's actually closer here, then it opens up and gets wide here. And then it kind of tapers a little bit back here. All right. So this eyelid is folded at the top. So this is the opening of the eyelid, which is right where the white of the eye is. Then the other part of the eyelid is the folded skin that's right up here. Now, I want you to take your pencil and draw an arch like this and bring it around. And it kind of tapers a little bit. So it's going to be higher back here and it arches down into the bridge of the nose. And this line will represent where we will put our eyebrow. So this line represents the eyebrow line going down into the bridge of the nose. Okay? Now, there is some erasing that we could do now. We can erase this circle right here. We can erase it back here. And if you don't get it all erased, that's okay. But I want to keep that circle right there inside of the white of the eye because this circle right here will actually separate the white of the eye from the tear gland. So make sure you keep that in there. That's going to be important. We'll talk about that later. All right, now we're ready to start talking about rendering. Rendering is the process of laying down the medium so that this looks realistic. Okay, so rendering will take place with these tools. First of all, we're going to be using the black 6B charcoal and the 4B charcoal. We'll use these two tools. All right. Now, the 4B charcoal is a lighter charcoal than the 6B. So what we're going to do with this 4B charcoal is we're going to, first of all, go along the edge of the top of the eye. So pressing that charcoal, and if you don't have the charcoal, use your pencil. So for those that didn't get their portfolios, please get your portfolios this week so you can continue working on this assignment on Monday. So you're going to have to press harder with your pencil to get a dark value. So with the 4B pencil, we go along the edge of the top of the eyelid. And it's a single weight line. Now, what I want you to do is double the weight of that line and make it a little bit thicker. So you say, well, what are you talking about? That means I'm going to make the edge back here thicker, and then it tapers to a thin line. So it goes from thick to thin. So how did I do that? All I did was just thicken this up with 2 more strokes. So stack the line and make it thicker. Please do that. That's going to give you a line contour that I'm looking for. So you see how I pressed it thick to thin. Now, we're going to take a little bit of the 4B and we're going to put a little bit of an accent mark here. Don't put it too thick, but we want an accent mark here. And then it gets really thin, almost where you can't even see it. And notice how the bottom of the iris almost touches the bottom of the eyelid. And then back here, I want you to make it thick again, and then make it thin. So we have thick, very thick to thin, an accent here, almost just a whisper of a line, just barely touch it. Thick, not as thick as this one, but just a little bit thicker, not as thick, a little less thick rather, and then it tapers. So the tapering line is important. And if it smears a little bit, just take your kneaded eraser and clean it up, because charcoal is dusty, smears a little bit, but it's a good medium. Now, with that same 4B, we're going to go up here to the eyelid and we're going to get it thick here. And then it tapers to thin. And then I need you to taper it back to thick. Now it does something different here. And I'm going to tell you why, because we're going to get into some shading real soon here. So we have thick to thin, back to thick. All right. Now, get the 6B charcoal pencil, which is black. We're getting things set up. And we're going to go inside of the pupil and make sure you get that pupil nice and outlined. I hope I'm not going too fast. Should I slow down a little bit and let you guys catch up? Put it in the chat. Or you can literally just say, yes, slow down. Okay, so what you're going to do is you're going to get the circle going like that. And then you're going to press hard and fill that in nice and dark. This is really, really dark. Some people say, well, what's the difference between the 6B and the 4B? Really, it's not a big difference. It's just that the 6B is a little bit softer and it makes it a little bit more dense. But actually, you could use the 4B for this as well. I just wanted you to see the difference. Now, later on, some people may say, well, Mr. Holliday, I heard that there's actually a HB and a 2B charcoal pencil. And there is. And you'll use that for very, very fine charcoal details. All right, now I got a little smeary right there because I'm working, vertically and the dust kind of drops. Now, with your charcoal, 6B charcoal pencil, work the edge. You're going to go from thick to thin. Thick to thin, and it comes around to a thin line. Over here, thick to thin. So we talked a lot about this contour. A lot of this is contour at this point. Okay, and I'll let you catch up right now because I know some people are feeling a little anxious, and I'll just talk about what I've just did. So we drew the ball, we drew the upper eyelid with a pencil, the lower eyelid, we drew the iris, we drew the fold in the skin, we drew the eyebrow that actually extends itself beyond the eye. So don't draw that eyebrow, the eyebrow line, too short. It extends itself beyond the eye. We erased the ball. We kept the line here separating the white from the eye to the tear gland. Then we started adding charcoal pencil using the 4B for accents, thick to thin, and 6B to fill in the pupil and to add a thick to thin on the iris. All right, now we are ready to start another medium. The other medium that we're going to use is the burnt wood. This is actually burnt wood. This is called vine charcoal. All right. And so we're going to take this vine charcoal, and you can actually break it in half if you want. And you're going to place these values. Now, watch this. Using a hatching motion like this, you kind of lay it on its side. I want you to place vine charcoal strokes like this. And if you don't have vine charcoal, then just use your pencil. And you're going to place this vine charcoal all the way to the middle of the eye socket. So this is the eye socket area. The fleshy part around the eyeball is the eye socket. So we placed a value of vine charcoal. Now notice that I had more vine charcoal gathering up closer together here. And vine charcoal will give you a medium to medium light value. And you can also get medium dark values with vine charcoal as well. So we got inside eye socket because this is the inside of the eye socket. This is the outside. Inside, outside. Inside eye socket. And you say, well, where does it start? Right where the eyebrow line is at, to the edge of the eyelid. So from eyebrow to eyelid, you're going to draw these hatch lines with the vine charcoal. Now on the outside of the eyelid, outside eyelid, we're going to do the same thing here. We're going to put in vine charcoal with little hatch lines. So I'm not doing, crazy stuff like that. I'm keeping it uniformed. And we're going to bring that to the center. So when you get to the center, lighten up your touch. So we're going to get it a little bit more medium, kind of like medium dark back here. Not really medium dark yet, but like a medium to a light. And you'll see that the vine charcoal is very forgiving because you can touch it and it really smears really easy. So with your tissue paper or your blending stump, or if you don't have a blending stump, you can use tissue paper. Or if you don't want to use your blending stump, you could just use tissue paper. I like to use tissue paper at this point because my piece is bigger, but I could use the blending stump. So if you use the blending stump, lay the blending stump on its side. Don't mash it down working with the point. Don't do that. Use the blending stump on its side and you rub in a buffing motion and you'll see that you get a real nice medium tone and that you get some medium on that blending stump. So always remember you should keep a clean side and a very dirty side because the clean side will be used for other areas. Now that's what your blending stump. I'm going to use tissue paper because I like the way that works too. And what I do is I fold my tissue paper to a corner. And you can just rub it with a blending motion. I'm not scrubbing it. I'm using a blending motion. And when you get to the part that's very light, you lessen the pressure in your hand and you let it melt into the white of the paper. So you go from a medium to a medium light, and then it fades to white. So let's do that in both areas. And it's okay for you to rub right into that charcoal line because we're going to make it all work together eventually. So I'm pressing with my tissue paper in a buffing motion. And when you get to that very edge, lessen the pressure in your hand so that it kind of like fades out. So I want it to fade into the white of the paper. So it goes from medium to medium light to white. Now, let's take some time and clean it up. So make that charcoal line, soften it up, and blend that charcoal line a little bit into the medium, and you'll see some cool stuff happening now. So I'm rubbing the charcoal line with the blending stump or the tissue paper, and I'm moving that charcoal into the medium tone of the vine charcoal. And I'm getting it to look more complete and more rendered. So what am I doing right now? I'm rubbing the charcoal line with either the blending stump or tissue paper. Some people say, well, can I use my finger? You can actually use your finger if you want, but you got to make sure your hands are clean. All right. Now, you could spend a lot of time here just cleaning this up and making it look really good, but we're going to move on to some other things. All right. Because I got some other stuff to show you. Now, we're going to take that vine charcoal at this point, and we're going to put a highlight right here inside the iris. In fact, I want you to do that with your pencil. I forgot to tell you that. So right here inside the iris, put a highlight, another circle. Now I'm going to use the vine charcoal so you can see it. So right inside the iris, put a highlight. And it's a small little spotlight right there. Now, take the vine charcoal and place a medium tone around the top of the iris onto the pupil around that highlight. So don't fill in the highlight. Leave the highlight white. Now watch how far I bring this down. I'm using little strokes. I'm going to create a crescent contour line right now. And you can do this with your vine charcoal. You can draw with it. Look at this curved crescent shape here, because that's as far as I want the vine charcoal to come. So you're going to bring that vine charcoal right in this region, leaving a crescent reflective light at the bottom of the iris. I'll stop and let you catch up. So what did I do here? I added the highlight. I went back and started filling this in, and then I very carefully drew a contour curved line, not diagonal, curved, to represent a reflective crescent light, crescent shape, curved shape at the bottom of the iris. Now I'm going to go back with my blending stump, or you can use tissue paper. And every now and then I like to take my tissue paper and repurpose it by folding it over on itself. So you can use the clean side of your uh, blending stump if you want, because you want to be very careful to get this nice and light gray. Okay, so you're going to work inside the iris now. And this is really, really going to be some tedious work because you got to get around that and get around the highlight and fill this in so that it's a medium tone. All right, that's a medium tone. Now, this is the fun part. This is the fun part. This is where you start rendering. You're going to go back with your 4B charcoal and you're going to lightly put a little bit of charcoal on top of that vine charcoal, just a little bit. Work it around the highlight. And you're shading the top of that iris lightly with the charcoal pencil. Don't press hard. This is like a light, because you're going to create a medium dark tone inside of that iris. And now I'm going to blend charcoal on top of the vine charcoal. And you can rub that pupil a little bit. If it rubs into the pupil a little bit, that's okay. Keep the highlight nice and clean. And I'm going to use my tissue. I'm going to use this blending stump because I want to be more accurate. And you can use your finger if you want. Sometimes using your finger is cool. Now, this is really important. If your blending stump is starting to get really murky and you use both sides, take your blending stump off to the side of the paper and rub it and clean it up. Because this is what I want you to do. I want you to make the edge of this blend and melt into the white of the paper. Now, I didn't fill it all the way in. So what I got going here right now is inside of the iris, I have medium dark to medium light. And that's very important that you understand that concept. We have a very dark pupil. We have a medium dark at the top. We have a medium in the middle. And as it segues to the bottom, it goes from medium to medium light to a reflective light at the bottom. Now, with your blending stump, you're going to start some cool stuff. You're going to go around the edge of that charcoal line and you're going to rub gently and soften that charcoal line because you don't want it to look like a cartoon. Now, we'll get into some other ideas next week on the iris and the radial qualities that we have inside the iris. We got all kinds of muscles and reflective qualities inside that iris. It's insane. The iris is very reflective. So what I'm doing right now is I'm just managing some of the medium here, making it blend, pushing it a little bit more. getting that nice medium dark tone at the top of the iris like that. So it looks like it's glowing. Okay, now we're going to go back with the vine charcoal. I want you to do this with vine charcoal, and we're going to place a darker, more heavier vine charcoal. And you can actually get medium dark with the vine charcoal right here, outside eye socket, medium dark right here, inside eye socket, outside eyelid, outside eyelid, inside eye socket. I want to make that clear. And I'm doing this with vine charcoal. Outside eyelid, inside eye socket. I'll stop and let you catch up. And blow the vine charcoal because it's going to get dusty. Now, with the darker side of your blending stump or tissue paper, or if you want to use your finger, but you got to make sure your fingers are clean, you're going to rub this darker value, creating a medium dark tone right here, outside eyelid, inside eye socket, and now you've moved a medium dark to a medium. So you're really starting to push the value here. You're really pushing the value. Okay, now I'm ready to do some more cool things. You should have enough medium on your blending stump. And really, to tell you the truth, why don't you do this? On the side that's really clean, rub it a little bit. And then I want you to take a little bit of the value, get a little bit on there, and you're going to actually rub a cast shadow onto the white of the eye. Because the eye is not really white, but it's actually gray. So what am I doing right now? I'm putting a cast shadow in a curving manner. So it's curving, and this cast shadow is onto the white of the eye. And you can actually touch a little bit of the edge of that charcoal pencil, and that's okay, because it'll be all right. But you want to control it. So if it gets a little out of control, like right here, just take your kneaded eraser and clean that up, because it's really easy to clean up blended tones. And I'm going to use tissue paper at this point, because I know, these are a couple techniques that I'm doing. And I'm going to rub that so it fades. So what did I do? I created a cast shadow inside the white of the eye. Do it on the other side. Take a little bit of the medium, rub it, and work it. You can actually move that charcoal line a little bit too, but be careful it doesn't get out of control. And using a buffing motion, watch this. I'm going to move that right along the edge of this circle, separating the white of the eye from the tear gland. Now stop and let you catch that. This is very important. As I work this side of the white of the eye, I want to separate the white of the eye from the tear gland. And I'm working a cast shadow. You say, well, what's this cast shadow from? From the eyelid. The eyelid will put a cast shadow onto the white of the eye. And this will make your drawing look realistic. Now, some people might have learned this already from Art X. If you had Mrs. Herring, excellent portrait teacher. Mrs. Walter knows this technique as well. I was actually Mrs. Walter's teacher back in the day. Way back in the day. And there you have it. Cast shadow. Now I got a little out of control there. So I'm just going to erase that little divot right there. And if it doesn't erase perfectly, you can always take your pink eraser and make sure you burn it off to the side first and you get rid of that. And you can fix things. Charcoal is very forgiving. And you can fix things and clean them up. Now there's all kinds of cool things that go on inside the white of the eye. Some people notice that there are little varicose veins. So you can go back with your pencil lightly, add little varicose veins. These are crazy details. You probably can't see it, but those are real cool details. We'll get into that later on. I'm just having too much fun. And it's really hard to see that. But you can see little broken veins in the eyes. Oh, it's just a lot of fun stuff. All right. So separate the tear gland from the white of the eye. This is really important you do this. And then inside the tear gland, you can rub that a little bit. It has a little bit of tone because it's an organ and it has a little bit of a shape in there, just a little bit. I'm going to use my finger on this. Okay. Now, you're starting to make this thing pop and it's starting to work. Now, your finger, see how when I put that on my finger, it kind of lifted it up? So always make sure that you keep the medium consistent. So now I got to go back and rework it. Charcoals is one of these things that you have to go back and rework it again, and go back and forth until you get it the way you want it to work. It's a back and forth process. All right, now I want to add some more medium to this. Now I can keep going on and on and on. But at this point, I'm going to go with my charcoal pencil and I'm going to uh, add some eyelashes. All right. And we're going to add eyelashes. Now, when you do your eyelashes, just don't make them like that. Eyelashes curve and they taper. So there's a thin to thick idea. Thin to thick. Thin to thick. And you want that to really capture right here and they curve. So you got to get in there and you got to draw it. So these eyelashes are clusters of hairs that crisscross, but they form in some kind of unity. And you start those eyelashes right here on the edge. And it's a technique. So I'm drawing this eyelash with contour. Now, as I draw these eyelashes, watch what happens. They start changing direction. So they don't stay curve. They start going up in a diagonal. And then they make crisscross here a little bit. And then guess what? They change direction and they go in the opposite direction, curving this way. And as they move down, they kind of spread out. So change the direction of the eyelash. Don't have that eyelash curved the same way all the way around. I've seen that happen. And that looks amateurish. That looks bad. Looks like an amateur did it. And I want you guys to look more professional with this because these are professional techniques. And what I'm doing right now is I'm building up the base of that eyelash. Notice how I'm taking that pencil and letting it it's a technique. You kind of like pull up on it because you want it to go from thick to thin, thick to thin. So it's almost like a little bit of a whipping action. with your pencil. Thick to thin, thick to thin. And you could do the same thing with your pencil. Now, if you had these tools, if you didn't have the charcoal pencil, it's going to be kind of difficult just to do that all with the pencil now. I'm gonna tell you the truth. But get your tools as soon as you can. So you're really working this charcoal pencil now. And this is done with the 6B, or you can work with the 4B if you want. Change directions. Now, I noticed that females are putting a lot of emphasis on their eyelashes now. And look, you can even break the eyelash down a little bit where it curves down into the white of the eye. I've seen that happen. And some of you know exactly what I'm talking about. And then you can go back. Some people know this and catch with the white charcoal a little bit of a reflective highlight on that eyelash. I've seen that happen too. Mrs. Herring teaches this trick too. But these are all real fussy details that we'll get into later on. But right now, get that charcoal pencil to build those eyelashes, and that's going to help the realism of this drawing. You'll see a little bit of eyelash coming off on the corners, a little bit at the bottom. Now, they're not as curved on the bottom. Now, we're going to get into a different idea with the bottom of the eye next week, because I'm going to show you that the bottom of the eye actually has a fleshy lip edge. And when you draw some of the eyelashes at the bottom, they crisscross. And then they get very, very few as they move towards the tear gland. You have very few eyelashes towards the tear gland. So the eyelashes are more clumped up on the edge of the eye here, and they are less on this edge. Now you'll see that those eyelashes have helped the realism of your piece. Now I'm going to take a little bit more of this black charcoal and I'm going to put it right in here because I really want this to pop. So I'm adding more black charcoal right here. And I'm going to take the blending stump or your tissue paper and I'm going to rub that in because I want this area to really have a lot of value. So we move from a dark to a medium dark to a medium to a medium light. And that's really, really important that we get that. All right. Now you should have enough medium on your blending stump on the side that's not too dark. And then you want to go back with your pencil or vine charcoal and do this. Right here at the bottom of the eye from the tear gland, we're going to do a little bit of shading like this. Now notice how this curves a little bit. You say, well, what is that about? You have a little bit of an eye socket area right at the bottom of the eye. And you can see when you're really tired, this gets accentuated. But you would see a little bit of a bag, not too much, but a little bit of the structure of the bottom of the eyeball shows up right here. And you see how I put that in there? All right. And sometimes this is very pronounced with some people, especially when you're tired. This gets really heavy. But you will see a little bit of this right at the bottom. And sometimes you see the bags, a little bit here, a little bit there. I'm not going to get too heavy with that. I'm going to put a little bit of this vine charcoal right here, just to accentuate the structure that's on the side of the eye socket over here, just a little bit. And this is with vine charcoal. And then I want you to do this with your pencil first. We're going to start adding the hair follicles for the eyebrow. Now I'm going to do this with the vine charcoal so you can see it. So you can try it with your vine charcoal if you want. Use your vine charcoal on this. Hair follicles, and you can spend a lot of time on eyebrows. Ladies, and by the way, this is the eye of a female. We're going to draw the eyebrows as they curve back, and then the eyebrow tapers. So you see less of the stroke of the eyebrow hair. So it clumps at this point where it's thicker, and then it tapers as it moves back. Thick and then tapers. All right. And this all adds to the realism. So when I added the hair really sets it off. Now, I want to take my blending stump or tissue paper, go to a clean side, refold your tissue paper. I'm refolding my tissue paper, going to a clean part, and I want to go in the same direction that I drew the strokes and lightly touch it. Don't press it too hard, just lightly touch it because it's vine charcoal and move it in the direction. Now, I'm not scrubbing it. I'm moving it in the same directions. It's all technique at this point. So if you lose the technique, you'll know it right away. And then I want to kind of, with a buffing motion, put in this area where I put that vine charcoal in earlier. Buffing motion here, a little bit here under the eye, a little bit of a bag structure right in here. And this area right here is very white. So I could just knock that down just a little bit. So it's not so bright. Work my way down into the bridge of the nose here a little bit. And this is all rendering at this point. So I'm rubbing the edges of the charcoal line now, making it all smooth because I don't want to see hard cartoon charcoal lines. And I'm just rendering at this point, having fun. Rub the eyelash a little bit with the blending stump, just a little bit, not too much. And there you have it, your first eye study. You guys think? You ready to draw another one on your own? I made some modifications to the eye here. I took the liberty of erasing this and lifting the edge of this eyelid here a little bit so that it fits and flows with the design, and it's more of a tapered eye opening so that it just looks better. So sometimes working on the contour is really important. And that was something that I should did on the onset. And some other things that I could do would just simply be just working the edge of the eye a little bit just to get rid of that hard cartoon charcoal line. So you just work that a little bit with the blending stump. But all the while, I'm keeping in mind that I want that reflective quality still at the bottom of the iris. So keep that in there. And it's really important that you just work the rendering aspect of the iris. So softening up lines throughout the piece takes away that harsh cartoon look. And you don't want that with a realistic study. So always go back over your lines, rubbing them, and getting rid of the hard charcoal line because it really adds to the realism of the piece. Okay, there you have it.